How's it going, everybody? My name is Benjamin Anderson, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about workflows. Workflows are really handy tools that allow you to automate all sorts of activities based on different triggers. These activities can be anything from templated emails to triggering external webhooks, and the triggers are any combination of adds, updates, or deletes based on your tables. Now, the workflow page is organized a lot like other pages in AppSheet. The center section is all of your existing workflows, and the top is houses your recommendations, new workflow button, as well as your search features. You'll notice that the workflows you have in the center of this page are once again organized by the table they're associated with. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at the workflow edit screen. Now, the workflow editor can be accessed both by clicking on an existing workflow to edit it, or by clicking on the new workflow button to create a new workflow. Once you're inside the editor, we see on the header a few options that aren't normally there. We do have the usual copy and delete, which can be used to copy or delete your workflow. But we also have things like test, log, and disable or enable. Starting at the left, we see the test button. The test button allows you to run the workflow without using the trigger associated with it. This can be really useful if your trigger is something like deleting an entry, but you don't want to actually delete that entry while testing it. Next, we've got the log. The log is a powerful tool to see errors or how long your workflows are running and if they're running successfully. We won't be looking into log in this video, but if you have any questions about it, please feel free to throw them in the comments below. Finally, we've got the enable/disable button. This button allows you to stop a workflow or disable it without actually deleting it in its entirety or having to change the condition that's inside of it. This can be really useful if you need a workflow to stop running temporarily, but you don't want to remove it entirely. Next, we'll move on to the things you can actually edit inside the workflow. First, at the top, we have the name. The workflow name is for internal use only. It's only going to be seen by an editor and never by the users. But just remember, it still has to be unique. Next, we have our triggers, what is actually triggering our workflow. This is the when this happens tab. The first thing you see that you have to decide is which table this workflow is associated with. Once you've chosen the table from that dropdown, the next dropdown allows you to say what is actually going to trigger the workflow. This can be any combination of adds, edits, adds, updates, or deletes, like I had said earlier. And finally, we have a toggle that allows you to run the workflow as if there weren't any security filters. This can be really useful if you're trying to aggregate data across the filters. Next, we have the if this is true section. This section only contains a conditional that helps you filter down when the workflow runs even further than just the trigger. For example, if you want to only run on updates, but specifically only updates when the status column was changed, this is where you would specify that. Next, we've got the do this section. This section is the bulk of what we know to be a workflow. Now, we're going to go more in depth into each possible action in different videos, but I'm going to try and give you a brief overview of each possible action. Before we go into this, I would like to note you can have more than one action in a workflow, or you can delete actions that you're not trying to use. Now, the first action I'll be going over is email. Email allows you to send an email to your users. At the top of each of these actions, you'll have the name for this individual action. This is separate than the name for the whole workflow and helps you decipher which action is which. If you, for instance, had two separate emails that are triggered on the same thing but send slightly different things, this is where you would specify which email is which. Now moving on, at the top, we still see things associated with email, like who to send it to, and whether we want AppSheet to create the content for it, or if we want to create the content for it. If we choose to create the content for it, we see the actual things we're expecting inside of emails. Things like who to send it to, what to send, attachments, etc. I'm not going to go over all of these, but just know, as you can see here, you can actually choose to send templates in both the body or as an attachment. We'll be going over more about templates in a different video, but they're incredibly useful in a lot of situations, although they are a little tricky to understand at first. The next action is notify. This allows you to send push notifications to your users. You can choose who to send it to as well as what data to actually send. Next, we've got SMS. For those of you who don't know, SMS are text messages. And you can either use AppSheet's default SMS or customize it a little more by using Twilio and a third-party service. This will have to be set up separately and can potentially cost extra depending on what settings you choose inside of Twilio. A lot of the options here are very similar to that of email. You can choose who it goes to, what it says, and even use a template if you want. Next, we've got change data. Change data is really cool because this allows you to choose any action that you have in the Actions tab and trigger it as a workflow. This is really useful because it means you don't have to press a button to trigger an action. You can automate a lot of these things, and it's incredibly, incredibly useful. Opens up a lot of possibilities for your actions. Finally, we have webhooks. Webhooks are all of the external APIs and third-party things that you're going to want to associate with your app. We use things like Zapier a lot in this section. Another very common one is Google Scripts, but there are tons and tons of other possibilities for what you can tie into this webhook section. Again, this is something we'll go over in a whole series of other videos. The last section of the editor is the documentation section. Again, this section allows you to leave a description of what actions are inside this webhook as well as what triggers it, so you don't have to go into each of those sections and decipher what is happening every time you try to edit it. That's going to be all for this video, but if you have any other questions, please feel free to throw them in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day. One thing I forgot to mention is that you can also save a file. You can come in here, create a template, add what path you would like the file to be saved to, and it will fill in the data from the template and save it to the path you wanted to save it to.
At Crew Technologies, we love helping people get great value out of AppSheet. We do that through offering professional services and helpful content like this. To stay up to date, like and subscribe, and we're always trying to improve, so leave us your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching.